How y'all doing? How y'all doing? This is Alvin from Trying Success on the Old Fashioned Health Network. Good health inside and out. I got my favorite. I know I said this about everybody, but I promise you, I have my favorite TikToker online with me today, Miss Elle. I'm so excited to have you. I'm always on her live, chiming in, teasing her about what's in the cup. She already got me before we got started. So, and she has a cup too with water in it and all that kind of good thing. But Elle, welcome to Trying Success.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad. I was actually, when you asked me to do it, I was like, I'm down. And then I was like, this will be good. I like it. I like being able to share and learn because, I'm all about the human condition. So this is where we are.
I was letting them know. I said, listen, this lady that we have today is like so on point with everything. And I tried to find the right background. I don't know if you can see the background. It's like a central train station. Is probably what that is. Like
I think I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to pick the right background to fit your whole vibe and all that good stuff. I'm so happy to have you on here. She's supposed to be coming to so these guys one of the guys worked with me on the show that I wrote for the talk show we talked about, right? Mm-hmm. That I hadn't given you all the details about, but I was telling Bo, this is one of the young ladies I want them to be on the show when we do the show for the ladies. And he's already shaking his head like, yeah, she'll probably be perfect. Yeah, we'll
see. Look, you got to see first. I might start talking some crazy stuff. You guys might not want to edit all the things I say.
No, I already told him to do that. No, let me tell you, the show we did earlier today, I had a show earlier today where this guy talked about Oprah Winfrey. He just threw a whole bunch of people on the bus. He told the truth about some things.
Okay.
But I'm like, I had to tell Oprah that I didn't say that. That's him saying that. I still love you and everything. He was calling out about a Weight Watchers commercial. And he was saying that she shouldn't be doing Weight Watchers commercials because she's misleading our people because people believe her and she has enough money to eat healthier than what
Weight Watchers.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing. That was his whole
Gotcha.
thing. Yeah. So and you know who he is. His name is Sean. Sean, Body Art by Sean. I thought you follow him on Body Art by Sean. Sean is out of California. I'm
you know what? I'm visual. So I would probably be like, oh, I know his profile picture. That would be.
Yeah. So you check it out on him. All right, so listen, tell when they was asking what is it that she does, I said, well, she does a lot, and I didn't know what title to give you other than she's an awesome black lady.
Oh, I'll say this much: I've worn many hats over the years. I've learned a lot. I've seen a lot. But as of right now, my Clark Kent, I deal with project management and marketing. Mm-hmm. But my superhero, Pinky in the Brain, when I take over the world, is I started a business about a year and a half ago, and I was trying to focus on something that is the antithesis of coaching. Mm-hmm. So the whole process that I'm doing is when people get stuck, they need to get unstuck. And so I like to call it changing your thought paradigm, shifting your focus on, I'm not saying don't take the world in view, but focusing on your human conditions and your skill sets in order to build and develop yourself up. And sometimes that's kind of hard, Yeah. I've had people reach out to me and they're like, I had this one lady, she does like actually project management. And she was saying that she was a little frustrated because she felt stuck because there was a new project she was going to be working on and she didn't know how to articulate the idea. And I believe that through creative thought process, critical thinking, art, sometimes some of the best ways for you to expand your mind is by going into the mind, looking at what it is that you need to do to build yourself. So, like I said, I wear hats and I know a lot about a lot of different things, but not everything about all the things.
But you know what? You're really good at research too.
Yes.
She's really, for those that are watching, you are so good at research. Let me check into that some more before you actually give your opinion. You're really, really good at that. So when you're doing some stuff with TikTok for a minute, were you doing anything with them?
I still do. Technically, I still do. So TikTok, like for those of you who don't know, TikTok has campaigns, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of inside, not too much inside before somebody says something to me, but no, I don't care.
Okay.
What they do, which is actually a good thing, is they find content creators based on their content to try to see where they can fit in certain campaigns. And so they reached out to me one day, was this 2020? Yeah, 2020, they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we'd like to start you on a program it was called something else, a learning portal or something like that. Mm-hmm. But now they call it Learn on TikTok. And so based on my content and me being a research nut and, talking about personal growth and empowerment, the things that I believe in, the reason why I started my business, they asked me would I be willing to share, educational, informational, content. And so that's what I started doing. So they changed the program. The reason why you haven't seen that hashtag a lot is they changed the way the program is.
Okay.
So you can still use the hashtag, but they're doing something different. They said they're revamping it for 2021. But I am a Learn on TikTok partner. So
we had a guy that we interviewed. Now you probably know his name is Pabel Martinez, and
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he did. You watched it already?
I saw some of it. I didn't see all of it.
Yeah, and he works for TikTok. He works for TikTok. I forgot what capacity. So he's big on, I guess, getting the right information out. Exactly. I don't know exactly what it was like. If they start paying, y'all call me. I can't do it for free. You know what I'm saying? You know how they go.
Right.
Let me ask you something. So they're talking about. So we're gonna jump around a little bit, okay?
By all means, that's how my mind thinks.
I know, right? So first of all, I have to tell you, I told you that I did like the video that you did with the young man out of Louisiana.
Oh yeah, Levert Blunt.
Smart guy. That guy's
yes.
smart. All right, so right now they're talking about having a Supreme Court justice that was supposed to be a black female. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that? Other than it's been a long time coming.
It's kind of hard to. You said other than it's been a long time coming. I think it's something that is needed. Voices in this country aren't just white cisgender male. Mm-hmm. They're not just able-bodied. They're not just a certain age. And if anybody can notice by the women that were on the nomination list, mm-hmm. there is a variety of women from different backgrounds as well as age groups. And I think that's really important. We don't have term limits when it comes to government in most cases.
Right.
And when it comes to Senate, they don't. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. My parents are baby boomers. I love them to death. I've enjoyed watching them mature into their senior years, but be a lot more progressive than I thought they'd ever be. Some of the things they talk about. But there should be term limits. And so while there should be term limits, you should never limit the opportunity for people to represent mm-hmm. your base. Mm-hmm. And considering that over 91% of black women carried into this presidency,
right,
and that the highest educated, highest earning based on their education mm-hmm. are black women.
Yeah.
For the first time, black women reached educational parity back in, I think it was 2011 mm-hmm. or 12, and we have consistently grown that way. So why shouldn't there be a black woman in the highest court in the land? I think it's a great move. I do fear that there is going to be one issue, which happens a lot of times. We saw it with Obama. We see it with Oprah Winfrey.
Uh-huh.
Well, Oprah did it, so Barack Obama did it, so. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the first black female Supreme Court justice. So they take black people and pour them into this space where it's like one person out of 450,000 should represent every black person in America. Mm-hmm. So I hope that, again, as I'm speaking about paradigm shifts, I think it's important for us to shift our focus around what that looks like when a black woman or a black man or a disabled person or somebody from another marginalized group goes into a space. They are not the one that's supposed to carry the gold medal across the line for every other black person or every other person in that marginalized group.
Mm. So do you think that, how important do you think this next upcoming midterm election is going to be?
It's going to be critical.
Very critical, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that if we don't really get out and vote, so I have to be a candid about this as I can. I think if we don't get out and vote this time, slavery is going to take on a whole new look. In other words, they're going to do more of what they always wanted to do, but more directly and more disrespectfully. And just like, it's just going to be laws that's going to be put in place that's already don't favor us in the first place. But I think they're just going to be belligerent with whatever they want to do if we don't vote and get some kind of control of a fair and balanced, somewhat of a fair and balanced system in place. Because it's not fair already, but it could get worse if we don't vote.
Yeah. I caution this though. We do not need to vote blindly.
I totally agree.
And we do that a lot. Because we're forced to pick a struggle. Because of the way white supremacy and concepts backed in that, which comes from systemic oppression and the way that the prison industrial complex was created, we oftentimes are forced to pick a struggle when we have all these struggles. And we shouldn't have to do that. Right. And so we make concessions during voting. We make concessions when we're looking for things that are intended to build us up in a community, and it doesn't.
Right.
It may level the playing field in certain places, but more often than not, if you are running with your shoe untied, you can run. You may trip, you may fall, you might lose your shoe, you might tear your sock up. Sure, you could make it across the finish line, but we have to stop just making it across the finish line. And so I'm hoping that people are a lot more thoughtful in what they're doing when they vote, and not just going into the voting booth, but what they're willing to do before and after, because that's the biggest part. You know, don't just go straight down the ticket and not know how to call that person accountable. That's the other part. Well, I voted them in. Okay, now hold their feet to the fire. Tell them to toe the line. If you're not willing to do it, then you gave your vote to the wrong person. Don't vote blindly. Know what you're doing when you make that vote, so you can hold them accountable for their actions when they don't represent you the way they should.
That's why I like you so much. I've just adopted her as like my sister. That's happened just osmosis.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now let's switch gears. Let's go to some other fun stuff. Let's talk about representation of the Black women when it comes to respect and relationships. Do you believe that the Black woman, when it comes to relationships, are not respected as such like she should be? And I'm talking about marital relationships, dating relationships, business relationships, just relationships in general. Do you believe, like I believe, I don't think you all are treated fairly. And I would just want to say this. And guys, y'all can attest to this. When you go to the grocery store and the lady she could be a young girl, or she could be an elderly lady, like 70 or 65, and just say she's working at the checkout counter, right? And then when she gives you your money, and then she said, "Okay, baby, thank you." Can't nobody say baby like a Black woman. Not one. It just make you just melt. Be like, oh, it's just something about the terms of endearment that's coming from a Black woman, a sister. Like even when you say, "Oh, it'll be okay," I just automatically believe it because you said it's gonna be okay. Now, one of the fellas is that, "Bro, it'll be good. It'll be good." But if Elle tell me, "Alvin, it's gonna be okay," for some reason, I'm like, okay. So that's. So I don't think you all get the respect or the due in my mind. So what do you think?
So I'm probably gonna catch hell for my response because that's just how social media is. I'm also a very balanced person. I'm a Libra. So
yeah.
Do I think that we are treated fairly, consistently, in a manner that allows us to feel like we have continuous support? No.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is there are some, and I made it in, shameless plug here. I created something, and actually this weekend I'm going to finish sorting through it. I created something called the Cookout Session. And one of the reasons I created it was because I believe every person, regardless of the group or distinction that they ascribe to, deserves a safe place. And oftentimes our safe spaces are encroached upon by people who do not belong. And that is one of the reasons people aren't going to like this. I've said it in my own content. You know how people say, I invited so-and-so to the cookout. I don't invite them to the cookout. Let me tell you why. And it's not because I don't have any disrespect. I've got some very good friends and people that have been in my life that are white people. But not everybody needs to be at the cookout. So if I'm talking about women's issues, brother, I love you, but you're not invited to the cookout.
Exactly.
If you're speaking about men's issues, I'm not invited to the cookout.
Right.
If I'm not in a space that doesn't fit the need or the things that are going on in that community, I should not be invited. Now, when it comes time, you guys finish wiping your mouth, you step away from the table from the cookout, we can come back together. Let's have dessert together. But in the meantime, we need to have those conversations. And I think what's happened, and the reason why I created the cookout session, was because Black men need a space to talk.
Right.
And I think they need a safe place. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the reasons why Black women in some positions and times aren't treated fairly, and we don't have that level of respect that we should, is because you have Black men over here saying, empower Black women. Mm-hmm. And then you got Black men over here telling you your ovaries are old, so you have no value. You should have had a kid by the time you were 23 and a half in 6 months. And, your hair is just not dark enough for you to be high value. Mm-hmm. So you have these two groups of men fighting over what our value is, and you didn't even really ask us. Mm. So that's a y'all problem.
Right.
If you're empowering each other and you find that balance, then you can empower Black women. But until you do this, it's sort of like the idea, you cannot pour liquid into another vessel if your vessel has a hole in it. You can't talk to me about high value and self-esteem if you don't have that. Right. You can't tell me that you can love me if you don't have that love for yourself. It doesn't exist. Right. So I feel like everything that Black men need to work on with connecting with Black women can be done with Black men. Mm-hmm. Same thing, vice versa for Black women. Because I'm going to have a cookout session for the ladies. I love them, but sisters, we need to talk. You can't just like a Black man should not be able to consistently point his finger at a Black woman. Ladies, step back. We'll talk later. Stop pointing your finger at him. Because ultimately, both of us, men and women, have areas and needs that don't match because we're not created the same. Mm. As much as you would love to be a good father, you will never be able to birth a baby. But I will never be able to create semen. So why not find where we are alike and can show respect for our own individualism as humans that are autonomous, and stop trying to say, well, you don't do it the way I want you to. Sir, I don't do it that way because I'm a woman. Right. And it's not because I'm a weak woman or a sad woman no, that's not it at all. You're him. I'm her. This is how we come together.
Do you have an offering tray? Just asking. Elle, that is well said. I totally agree. So I have this thing about, I'm not going to invite you to the cookout, but you can come to the after party.
That's it. Thank you.
But you can't come to the cookout.
Yes.
Yeah, you're always welcome to the after party because it's open to the public, but not the cookout. Yeah. And I think the way you explain it, anybody with any open-minded sense to and respect of another culture should be, okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. I appreciate the way you put that. Okay, now, so here's my next question. I've heard, so let's talk about in the film and movie industry. Tyler Perry, Spike Lee, it's not too many, Lee Daniels, a couple other brothers and stuff that are in the film industry and doing movies. I've heard a lot of the guys say when they see Flip Wilson, we old enough to know who Flip Wilson was. I used to do okay, but for some reason we seem to think that when males do any type of acting role or anything, especially Tyler Perry movies and the Mud Deer thing, it seems like some of the men, we may get offended and say, okay, now that's them doing trying to make the man not take away his masculinity. As a woman, when you see a man doing any type of role where he's cross-dressed or anything like that, do you see it as a Black woman that's what's going on? What do you see when you see that?
Well, first and foremost, I will say this. I was actually just having this conversation a little earlier with someone that I know very well. And we were mentioning the idea of feminism. Mm-hmm. And why people call that such a cuss word, right? It's like you're cursing at me. Masculine and feminine are one of those words because masculine is a construct just like feminine is. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I find interesting is that whenever, and it comes back down to that, it's very similar. They all it's the knee bones connected to the hip bone kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And when you look at how when Black men argue with Black men about Black women, a lot of them deal with gender roles. They're the roles of what makes you a masculine alpha male compared to stop being a beta or a simp. Because the idea, I'm trying to figure out, why is it that the idea of supporting Black women and allowing Black women to thrive in their spaces and in their own feminine energy and their own energy and balancing in their masculine energy makes that Black man a simp and he's soft because he's supporting a Black woman? I said all that to say, when you start looking at film and the industry, you have to respect the art for what it is and what that person is willing to do to balance that art. Am I a big Tyler Perry fan when it comes down to Medea and stuff? No, but I just don't like this. I don't care for it. Right. However, I do believe that a true actor, a true person who believes in their craft will find more about their ethics and their values to be important than it is just to get a job. So I feel like if a Black man is willing to do that role, then he made a decision, whether it was based on his pocket or the fact that he believes in the craft of art. And that art is acting. And so a true actor in their method, depending on what method they use in their acting, is going to say, I'm going to be this masculine man with my 5 kids at home and my sexy wife. I'm about to put this dress on and pull it off. Does that make him less? Is that feminizing him? Right. No, because he's comfortable in his masculinity, which is constructed to say, this does not change the fact that I love women, that I love sex with women, that I love to play basketball with my friends, or I love to knit on the weekends. Does that make him any less masculine? No. I just feel like in order to push the narrative of pushing people apart, instead of showing them their likenesses, you keep stamping this label on it, which is the reason why I mentioned feminism, because a man can be a feminist. But that doesn't make him feminine. That just means he respects a woman for her ability to have equal playing field and the things that she wants to do and she wants to accomplish. So if she decides that I want to go out and be a welder, did that make her masculine? Right. Nah, she just wants to be a welder and make good money. Right. So, do I think, if anything, what should be bothering people about that is that slapstick minstrel show mentality. If you're going to get bothered by that, right, let that be your problem, not the feminine masculine energy thing, because then you're just a mammy. Right. You're a male mammy in a dress, if that's the case. So we could spin it any way you want it. But I think it's really about how that person finds value in what they're doing and if they're comfortable and confident in it.
Okay. Now, here's another one.
Okay.
I enjoy talking to you. I really do. Okay. So here's the next one. So this is about bad marriages and bad relationships. Okay. And the effect that they have on women when they have kids. Okay. When a woman is in a bad relationship, and I don't know this to happen to men because I hadn't seen the trend where when I've seen women go through bad relationships or bad marriage, still in a bad marriage or in a bad relationship, and they either still trying to hang in there with it or hadn't let it go, first thing that gets their attention is going to be Joyce Myers, T.D. Jackson, one of them other ones. That's going to be the first safe haven to hang around to find some type of comfort. I could be totally wrong, ladies. It just looks like that, so forgive me. But it just kind of seems like that seems to be a trend, And I get trying to find a spiritual comfort in the struggle, but that's one. But then if the woman happens to have kids, specifically if it's a daughter, instead of her going to one of her friends to have a conversation saying, these are some of the things I'm going through, or an adult, she tends to sometimes makes her daughter her friend. And then her daughter becomes her friend. And now that your daughter is your friend, that's your good girlfriend if you're dumping all the stuff on that you're going through with her father. So then now she starts to have some problem with the father indirectly, and she starts seeing it a different way. And then the daughter, by the same token, once as she grows older, she tends to isolate herself and then tend to be by herself because she's looking at the problem that mama had. Mm-hmm. And then mama has dumped all the negativity that she's gone through. Everybody that's treated her bad in any kind of way, be it another sibling or anybody else. Now the daughter has now built a sense of protection around her. So whatever mama didn't like at that time, the daughter ain't gonna like it either. And now your daughter cannot hardly it's hard for her to have a regular relationship. Have you ever seen that or noticed that? What do you think?
I mean, I'm not around a lot of young people, so that might be part of it. And most of my friends' kids are like older and they either started their own families or in college. Mm-hmm. But I see what you're saying because I've heard other people say it. What's your question? Is it damaging to the?
Is it? Do you agree that it is damaging to the kid, to the girl, the daughter? Specifically, happens to the daughter. The guys, the sons tend not to. We just gonna be mad with pops or the boyfriend, and we ain't being mad at the rest of the people that mama mad at. We just mad at we can identify the source and be done with it. But for the female, the daughter tends to embrace every emotion that the mother is going through, and whatever she doesn't like, the daughter is not gonna like, and she'll just hold. And I'm speaking this. I've seen it happen to friends and family, and I've seen it's like you took on the things that your mama didn't like. Your mama made you her best friend, and now whatever mama don't like, you have an opinion about it, and because she grew you up too fast and didn't allow you to grow up as a child. So I'm just wondering, do you think that is true and is damaging to the daughter? And should mama just get somebody her age or get some counseling to talk to us, say, okay, these are the things I'm going through?
Well, first and foremost, everyone needs a therapist. And one of the things that I find difficult, especially when it comes to any organized religion, but even as a Christian, you see people, I'm going to just pray about it. Okay, no, sweetie, you can pray about God helping you find the doctor that you need to go to. Right. Because maybe you don't want to go to a psychiatrist. Maybe you might need one. But in the meantime, you don't have to go to a psychologist. You can go to there are spiritual counselors. You know what I'm saying? It just you can look at it this way. I think it does happen to men. It may not be. I think it happens to either parent. I think what's happening is coming from your male view. You can see the animosity a little heavier than you would possibly, depending on how toxic that mother is. Right. But the same thing does happen with mothers and sons. The same thing happens with mothers and fathers and daughters. It depends to me, and it's just my experience, because I can think of a good friend of mine right now. Her son is very, very helpful to her, but he also experienced a lot with mom because dad wasn't there. Then I have some female friends or women, some women that are like, I'm daddy's girl because mom didn't give her that type of connection that she needed. So then I think it's really what it is. It's lack of self-awareness and transfer of generational trauma.
Yes.
We see it, we feel it, we live it, we breathe it, and then we pass it on. The problem is it's easier to pass on pain than it is knowledge of self-awareness, because if you're self-aware, then that means you know everything about yourself. Right. And a lot of what you don't know, what you know about yourself is not pretty. I remember when I was in some intensive therapy, this was many years ago, in order to do the program that I was in, the therapist was like, you had to take an assessment, because she was like, this is about to be, we digging in. I need to make sure that you're okay when we start digging in. And the process was called the EMDR. It's a method that helps you get to higher levels of thought process while you're conscious. So it's not like hypnotizing, but it helps you through mindfulness. You literally are focusing on that moment and that feeling, that traumatic feeling, that pain or whatever. But you have to be mentally stable enough to do it, because it can cause issues. Right. So, or it'd be a waste of time. So anyway, the reason I'm telling this story is because she told me, you are about to find out a lot about yourself that you don't like. And a good portion of it is your fault. So you need to be willing to work through that, because you being present and mindful in that is what's going to help you reroute your thought processes. So you can go back into real world, go back into dealing with people and recognize your onus in it, and then recognizing when it wasn't you. It's basically, don't take on anyone else's weight when you weren't the one meant to carry it in the first place, which comes right back down to what you said. If a mother or a father is transferring that weight, that pain, that trauma, that loss from a bad relationship, from whatever, to their child, they are now carrying the weight of something that they, number one, aren't developed enough for. They're not old enough. They haven't even, you've changed their worldview before they were even able to see the world. Right. So when you transfer that, you have then put your child in a space that makes them hypersensitive and hypervigilant of, at that point, the other sex. So it's like, you know, like I posted a video where these kids were 8 years old in a classroom, and the woman's like, all right, boys and girls, pull out your books. And this boy was like, I guess he said, why are you looking at me, or something like that. And she goes, he says, that's why you ain't got a man. And she goes, that's right. And I don't need no man. I don't need no man. Wait a minute. You're 8. That's the first thing I'm thinking. And then he says, even if the man will pay all the bills, I don't need a man's money because I can pay my own bills. All y'all do is sit on the couch and watch video games and play video games anyway. The teacher is like, what are we doing? I asked you to pull your books out. Let's get to work. Have a seat. You know what I'm saying? Why would 8-year-olds be saying that?
Because of what they saw at home.
Because of what they saw at home. And remember now, if the man's on the couch playing the video games and the woman is screaming at him, they both are not in the position where they're teaching their child the right thing.
At all.
8 years old.
We used to be told, go in the other room, you see grown people talking.
And you know what? I think that's right to an extent. And the reason I say that is there are certain situations that children shouldn't be involved in because they're not mature enough to understand them.
I ain't ready.
But I do disagree with the fact that people do two things. They tell them children are supposed to be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. And then they send them away when there's a teachable moment, when there's an opportunity for that child to develop a skill set.
Okay.
That's when we as adults need to be responsible for our actions and recognize what we're saying around our child. What are we saying to them that's stopping them from developing? Because if there's an opportunity for you to discuss money, relationships, religion, food, if you are gone in the other room, well, you literally just had an entire conversation that can teach them something. Right. Maybe it's not so much that they shouldn't hear it. Maybe they shouldn't hear how you're delivering it. Maybe you need to learn how to talk in a way that your child, that's age specific, that your child can understand so that they can communicate with you. Because think about what happens if somebody says go in the other room. Now, why would they want to talk to you later?
Right. I mean, you already shut.
You don't ever talk to me because you told me to shut up.
Right.
And you told me to go in the other room.
Yep. And we keep regurgitating. You know what's interesting that I have to brag on my mother about? Bless her heart, she's not here. Love her to death. Love her. But I've never heard my mother curse, yell. The only thing I heard my mother ever say is, y'all get y'all little tails in here and get ready to take a bath. I don't even remember. If she ever said maybe ass, I can't even remember that. And so when I would go to visit my family, my other cousins, and mama be yelling at them, I'd be like, oh, I got to get out of here because I am not, this is not what I'm used to. My mother was one of those soft-spoken. Now, the bad part about that is when she wanted to have a conversation, like, I need to talk to you. And so now I'm already falling out crying because it's just not going to be good because she's too smooth with it. And then you have to go in the living room and then you sit, because, we used to go in the living room, sit on the sofa that had the plastic on it and have a conversation. And she'd be like, and it was like, okay, Alvin, now you should. And so I can't even get through the whole conversation because I'm crying. And she didn't have to yell. And her point was made. So you're right. All this yelling or telling me to go in the other room, that's not good for your kids.
It isn't. And, I was raised actually very similarly. My mom, and this doesn't seem like it now, but, back in the day, I'm saying it like I'm old, but in the 60s and 70s, the average person wasn't having kids in their 30s. They were usually younger. Yeah. Right. So my mom was 30, almost 31 when she had me. And I think because she had already had one child, because my sister's close to 6 years older than me. But by the time she got to having me, she was calmer. She had already done this mom thing for about 6 years. I'm not getting here stressing this out kind of stuff. And so one of my mom's things that she did, and I tell people all the time, is my mom would never spank us for no reason. She would never ground us for no reason. She'd be like, what did I say? And I'd be like, oh, what'd I say? And then she'd be like, come here, let's talk to you real quick. You about to get a spanking, right? Have a seat and tell mommy why you about to get a spanking. We literally, like, you know what you're saying? Yes. My mom would talk through everything. Explain. I got my last spanking when I was 7. The reason I remember it very vividly was because I thought, you know what? So all I have to do is listen to her, talk it out, and just stop. And I won't have to deal with her anymore like this. And I was like, boop. It was like a switch cut off. And from then on, like, my mom would ground me, or she'd take my phone or my, not PlayStation, my Nintendo or Sega or something. And she'd be like, oh, there. And then I would just be a good kid for a while. She'd tell me I was grounded for 2 weeks. It was really only 1, so it was like, it helped me learn throughout my youth all the way up until now that you can have healthy conversations.
Yes.
Not screaming, not cursing, not throwing things.
Right.
You know, and I'm going to segue. You didn't ask me this, but I'm going to tell you.
Go ahead.
So I have had on multiple occasions when I've dated that men were expecting me to be angry, to throw stuff, to pour, like, I'm like, I'm sorry, who have you been dealing with? Because I'm not her. And I've actually used that phrase before. I've even used it in my content. I'm like, I'm not her. Well, what do you mean by that? Not every woman is a clone or a carbon copy of every other woman that you've been with. Not every woman has the same shared experiences when it comes to relationships. Yes, we share the experiences of youth and growing breasts and having a cycle and, you know, dating. But we're not one size fit all. It's not a carbon copy. And so if your experiences have been that the women scream and holler at you, that is your issue, not mine. The fact that you are choosing to be in relationships with unhealthy people is not my issue. It's yours. We can talk about it. Let's talk through it. Let's see where we're missing things. Like what happened in your last relationship? Is this triggering you? And you'd be surprised. This was years ago. I had a guy ask me, we were not dating, we were hanging out a little bit, you know, but we weren't in a relationship. Nice looking dude. We were about the same age. And we were supposed to go to like this restaurant and go shoot pool because I like pool. I'm not good at it, but I like it. And he was just like, I'll see you on Friday. So I'm on the way sorry, I got an eyelash. I'm on the way to the place and I get a phone call and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks a lot. And 15 minutes out, but what's the deal? And he was like, I'm gonna just be straight with you. He was like, you're a beautiful woman. You got your stuff together, but you just don't have enough fire for me. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not on fire. I was being a jokester. And I was just like, I don't understand. He was like, you're real calm. And I like that. But sometimes I heard him go, he was like snapping. I could hear it through the phone. He was like, I need some extra. You just don't. You basically, and that's exactly what I said. I was like, so you like drama? And he was like, if that's what you want to call it. I was like, sounds like drama, and I'm not her. So, you know, that's how I was socialized as a child. My mom was like, we can talk it out. Even when my parents would have their, you know, tiffs and arguments. My dad was in the military for a good portion of my young life and we didn't travel. So when he came back, you know, there was an adjustment period and they didn't argue all the time. But when they did argue, you know, I could tell when my mom was like, it was just like, I think we need to stop because now both of our voices are raising to a level. We're not learning anything. We're not getting anywhere. I'm a cook. You go chill out. We'll talk later. And there was no screaming and throwing things and crying and pouring bleach on clothes and flattening tires. And I mean, I'm not going to say I've been perfect my whole life, but I'm just, you know, there were things that I learned at a young age that helped me develop when it was time for me to go through therapy, when I became a wife and when I went through a divorce and all those things that made me take inventory and stock of what could I do differently? What is my role in it? Where can I make the changes that I need on my end so that when I present myself to another person in another space, time, whether it's work or a relationship, intimate or platonic, how can I be well-rounded and be able to diffuse situations and deal with issues and struggles? And how can I do that efficiently and in a calm manner? So
my last question, I know I told you this is my last one. What is the number one thing that you think in relationship when it comes to being married, before we get married or think we're getting married, the one thing that you think we should always do before we finally say, yes, this is the one? What is the one thing that we probably, or the two things that we probably need to make sure we think about before saying yes to that person when we think they're the right one?
One of them is going to be more traditional and one thought's going to be a little less traditional. Okay. This is going to sound actually three things. Sorry.
You can have.
I do believe that some type of counseling, or even if you don't want to do traditional counseling, I think people need to look at either taking like a class or exercises or something that I'm not telling you to script your life off those things, but there are some situational things that sometimes don't happen until after you've been married. And I'm not even talking about 2 weeks after you got married. Some things don't pop up until you're like, wait a minute, I'm year 2 of this and I wasn't expecting this. So I don't really know what to do with this. So of course you can't always have it's not going to be, again, one size fit all, but you can try to, I think you should have some type of workbook that you go through or activities that you go through that you guys build. It doesn't have to be a therapist, but you need to get prepared for dealing with each other. That's not just we went to the movies and shot pool, or I went to her house today and I'm going next weekend kind of thing. Okay. The other one is I think you should go on a trip together. You need to go on at least 1 or 2 trips together, and not even an overnight trip. You need to plan a trip 3-4 days if you can. If you can do longer, do it. Because some of what we do is drastically altered when we're in an environment that we're not used to, and we're forced to vie for other resources that aren't around a person. I'm not saying you need to go to Mexico and neither one of you speak Spanish, but if you want to test it, go ahead. But I feel like, picking the hotel, how it feels in the room temperature being different, what it's like to try to do activities outside of your normal area where you're driving, knowing that this person is your helpmate before they're your helpmate, because you got to navigate that space alone. So I think taking a trip, especially to a place where you've never been, either one of you have ever been, I think that's a good thing. And my last one, now I'm not speaking ill of anyone's beliefs or the things that they do, but you really need to have healthy conversations about what sex and intimacy look like. I think one of the biggest issues other than money is sex and intimacy. So if you don't know, if your partner is a person that enjoys sex 15 times a week and you've never had sex, you guys need to talk. Because I don't know any person that gets it right the first time. So if you're a virgin and they're not, and then you decide you want to get married, you guys really need to have a conversation. Because very quickly. Let's just say neither one of you are. Both of y'all could be super freaks swinging from the rafters and jumping off dressers. Doesn't matter. You need to talk about that, because sex and intimacy change just like you do. And if you run into a relationship, you decide you want to get married, and you don't talk about those things, because regardless of what you believe, we're all human beings. We all have feelings and emotions. And so I think it's important to have that conversation, because the last thing you want to believe is that person is the right person for you. And then you realize that sex meant more to them or less to them than you thought. And then now you're sitting there scratching your head because you're cranky, or you're pushy, you're bothering me. And then the other part of that is knowing that sometimes people experience traumatic experiences in their life, male or female, man or woman. It could be abuse. It could be sexual abuse. It could have been all these things that frame how someone looks at physical and emotional intimacy. If you can't discuss intimacy and sex with someone before you get married, you're going to have problems later.
I could just ask you question after question, but I'm just going to stop right here.
Okay.
But you're going to have to promise me we're going to do this again, right?
Of course.
Okay, so
you might have to be on my podcast. It won't be as fancy as yours. It won't be as fancy.
It's okay. It's okay. So get this. The next time we talk, I want the things I want to cover with you the next time is mental health in the Black community.
Yes.
So bad. I really, really want to talk about that, because we don't do enough for that. We don't talk about it enough. That's Jim. A cousin Jim. He acts like that all the time, and we just push him over at the cookout, act like there's nothing wrong, So, but I want to talk about that the next time we have a conversation.
Definitely, I'm a big proponent of mental wellness. I'm big on that. So I could talk about that all day. That and victim advocacy. Yeah. You give me that, we're
gonna cover, because the reason why I'm happy to have you on my podcast, there are some things that you would talk about that I could talk to you about that my listeners need to hear. Because I'll put it in, and yeah. So yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Look, I'll see you live streaming at some point.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Have a good one. Oh, save me some pie or make me one. So when I get to Atlanta or something.
Look, when you come to Atlanta, I cannot wait for you to come. We're going to roll the carpet out for you. Just let me know when you coming. You ain't got nothing to worry about. Take it easy. Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.